hit the raise your hand button. And it looks like we have a couple of folks here. Okay, Alan, you had your hand up first. I will bring you over. And Alan, you are up.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So my concern is that I did not receive any public announcement of this meeting. I was in conversation with Rob Zako momentarily. He also did not receive any notice of this meeting, so that concerns me that this is a public meeting without public notice.
Do you want me to respond?
Go ahead.
Because this is not a city council advisory body. It's not actually considered an official public meeting. It is a committee advising the Department of Public Works. And
Okay.
so while it's not strictly held to the same public notice requirements, we normally follow those just by good practice because we want people to know that this is happening. So if there wasn't a meeting notice, then some oversight was made, and I will make a note of that.
Yeah,
Filling in for staff who are out of town.
there's no agenda on the website either, so it's just really problematic. It hasn't been an issue in the past, so.
Okay.
I'm glad I
Okay.
remembered the date, and I'm here for this, but I'm concerned about people out there that are trying to get input from that might otherwise not know.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah, thank you. There's nothing else, Alan? Okay.
And Vicky?
Hi, thanks for letting me speak. And I would agree with Alan. I didn't receive notice, but I did notice that there was a link to the Zoom on the InMotion newsletter because I went to look at that because I was kind of scrambling at 5 o'clock going, I wonder what's going on here. So that's how I actually got in. But I do have another concern with some of the construction signage on High Street, especially. I was riding my bike from 19th Street all the way up to 3rd Avenue and or 3rd Street, and trying to figure out where bikes are actually supposed to go. I think when I got close to 13th or so, I started seeing some signs and that the left lane was closed, but it didn't say, bikes on roadway or anything until I think about Broadway. So it looked like the bike lane was kind of open, but there was a whole bunch of cones. So I'm wondering if there's someone could, from transportation could write it and pretend like they're a new rider, and how would you actually get up High Street? It finally allows you to get back into the bike lane, I think, just after 8th Avenue. And so I just stayed as close as I could to the cones because the cars were only in one lane. So I guess I'm wondering that. And there was another small construction project on Club Road and Cedarwood to replace some a sidewalk ramp. Northwest Natural did it. So I'm wondering if there could be some review on when there's construction around to have bike and pedestrians seem to be considered when they're putting the signs around and stuff. And I appreciate all the work you guys are doing. Great job.
Thank you, Vicky.
And would
You
you
want
be
me to
able to? Yeah,
respond?
sure.
Yeah, so the folks who are contracted to do construction do have requirements for placing out signage for people who are walking and biking. So if it's unclear, then there's something going wrong there and we need to contact the contractors. So tomorrow I will look into, what contractor is on the job in this case, and see how we can fix it to make it more apparent where you're supposed to go.
Can I make a comment about one other place?
Yes.
Chambers also.
Okay,
there's like a bike on roadway sign and then suddenly bike lane closed.
okay,
A little like, what's going on? So it's
Okay.
A little scary.
okay. Thank you.
Yes, and Vicky, that's been an ongoing
Ongoing.
issue that we've talked about.
Okay,
Yeah,
It's
It's happening more
continuous.
than once.
They need,
okay.
I mean. It would be nice if the city had a way to enforce it because it's required but not enforced. And it's only enforced when cyclists report it. And most of us, you're in a hurry, you're going somewhere. I rode on High tonight and it was closed at, oh, probably about 18th for half a block, put you out into to the road, and then you could get back in it again. I mean, it changes every day.
Yeah.
So, because they're working on different pieces. So there needs to be a little bit more.
Oversight.
oversight.
Either
yeah,
oversight
yeah.
or they have to put down a nice big fat sum of money so that, the city can go and take care of it at their expense. Things that might motivate that, because it happens
Yeah.
constantly. It's a constant,
Yes, it is a constant
know,
thing. Okay,
Mhm.
it's
yeah,
rude.
think of.
It's
think about
rude.
long-term solutions.
With all of the infrastructure the city is doing, which is great, that
Yes.
has to be a piece of it.
Yes.
Because it's quite dangerous. Yeah, it's dangerous. Thank you, Vicky. Anybody else, Cass? Or,
Nobody else online? Is there anybody in the room who would like to make a comment?
I'm Connie. I'm gonna use the little board up here. This is something that happened today, but it's happened to me before, and it's something I realized in all my decades of bicycling, that I have not considered. So I am here at a sidewalk crossing. It's a city view. This is West 11th, and I'm trying to go this way along the sidewalk crossing. I'm with my bike. I'm just walking my bike across. When the walk sign here turned on, I proceeded forward. The people came with no stop, just like this, straight at me.
Mhm.
And this is the second time it's happened to me at this intersection, which made me think, I have no way of knowing what signal is coming off this light right here, because it's above and behind me. And so I'm looking at this and I'm seeing a walk sign, but these people were very determined, as if they didn't see, and so was the person that it happened with before. They just came straight at me as if there was no bike icon or walk icon here. And so I realized that, aside from saying various things about the person who tried to run me over, is that this is a key for us. Do we know, when someone's trying to kill us, whether in fact this signal is functioning and we have the same thing that we are looking at and they are not seeing, and we are not seeing what they are looking at. So it was something, this is little conundrum that brought it up to me, that I've been bicycling for years, and I realized that's a key one. If we have a malfunctioning signal and we're screaming at these other people and we're not seeing the same thing. So that's just something that sort of was brought acutely to my attention.
So are you talking about generally at intersections, not just this intersection?
No, I'm just, at any intersection we go into where we're using a walk or bike signal,
Mhm.
do we? No, we don't.
We
What
don't.
is happening above and behind us, that the people coming,
Mhm.
we can see in front of us, it says bike go, walker go. But we have no way of knowing if the signals above, behind, or whatever are saying the same thing.
Mhm.
And because we allow a right turn on a red, even if there's a walk sign, that crossing Amazon Parkway, there
Attempted murder.
has been attempted murder, and I know they want to get rid of me, but there's been attempted murder, I would say about once every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
With somebody turning right on the red turn arrow. Oh, yeah, no, they just assume that they have the right, they don't look. They don't look.
No, I
It's
know.
just- Yeah, it's stunning.
And right turn on red is a state.
But
Yeah.
this is where I had 3 vehicles here and they all proceeded in. So were all of them missing it, or were all of them not not having a signal function?
So I'm not familiar with the design of that signal, but anytime you think a signal is malfunctioning,
I know, but
we
I-
definitely want to know right away. And then the number to
Oh,
call,
I know,
you know,
yeah, but
um,
I just realized we have to be really aware as bicyclists and walkers. That we may not see the same signal people are.
I wonder if a leading pedestrian interval would have been, something that could have helped there because you would be out right where they could get to.
I was walking out and they came.
Yeah,
kept
but you know
coming,
that-
and, I mean,
Yeah, but you would have a head start
yeah,
and then.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
but I was
I don't
just
know.
walking out there and I realized this guy keeps coming, just like
Yeah.
the time before. That's what's so astonishing. I am out there in this in broad daylight. And so it's mind boggling. If that's the case, if they're just not seeing what's new, but I never considered that aspect before.
okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Anybody have any comment about that one other than?
I think also, and when it's a big intersection like that, sometimes there's like a lot of poles and obstructions, and then sometimes people don't see the pedestrians so well or the bicyclists so well, until you're like really across all. So, I mean, that's what I think.
Well, and on these wide streets like 11th where it's 4 lanes, sometimes it gives you whatever, 10 second, whatever it gives you. Even if you're sort of moving along, you can have the don't walk in your hat, you're right in the middle of the intersection. Or even 2/3 in, but you're not over to the other side yet. And as we think
It's
about
not a
80
pedestrian
cities-
friendly place over there
No.
on West 11th. Okay.
Jerry's joined us to your point.
Yeah, we have Jerry and Michelle, hi, on virtually.
Yeah.
So Jerry and Michelle, we're up to 6 members and 8 is a quorum
7,
and 7.
you have 7 members, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Oh, no.
No, he's a liaison from, yeah.
Sorry.
You do count, but you aren't, you're here.
I don't know if you heard, but we are going ahead with the meeting, but we don't have a quorum, so we won't be making any decisions or anything, but we're gonna go ahead and take, the people are here, so we want to hear what they have to say and. We'll
Misty is here too. That's 3 on Zoom. So Misty's here as well.
Misty,
Okay, great, then we have a quorum, then we can vote on the minutes.
we have 7 and we need 8,
No, there's,
really?
You said we have 13, right?
Well, there's been
Well-
disagreements about how many people we have.
Yeah.
my list shows that there are 14 members.
Okay, so we don't have that.
Okay. We'll say that we don't have enough right now because but anyway, thank you for being here and let's go ahead. Do we have a motion to approve the June 2023 meeting summary notes?
Except we can't.
Can't
approve
vote
them
on
Oh, that's
because we
right.
don't have a secretary,
We
we'll
will
just move
do
on.
that next time.
Yeah.
We're moving on. Okay, thank you. So we're on to the move huge prioritization. We're going to have a presentation by Logan. And remember, the city's been collecting all that data from people about different priorities. And so he's going to tell us how that's going. And then I think we're also listening for how the ATC might be possibly involved going forward.
Okay.
Want me to like be up here? Do you want me to drive on the laptop? I can hang out up here.
Yeah, if you just tell me when to move the slide, I can do that.
Okay.
You're ready, I'm ready.
Okay.
All right, can you flip it again? There we go. So a reminder for anyone who doesn't remember, in November, voters passed a transportation bond that in addition to funding a lot of paving projects, kind of established these general buckets of funding that were unprogrammed at that point in time. Funds for walking projects, funds for biking projects, safety and street trees. Additionally, there's a $2 million kind of floating category that can go towards any of the above categories. So in the bond, we committed to working on building out a proposal for how we're going to spend it and having that approved by city council by November 1st. If you can flip to the next slide. And so the timeline for, taking on this work really started with a robust community engagement process. We did a lot of community engagement. We've collected data, and right now where we are we're working on the project prioritization and scoring piece there in the middle. After we complete this stage, we're gonna move on to generate a list of proposed projects for funding. And then end it all with getting city council to review and approve the list of projects. By November 1st, likely we'll actually be going to city council sometime in October. Flip the slide, please. Yeah, so we got a lot of engagement from folks, over 1,300 project ideas and comments about safety on our roadways. And really, how we've started, since we finished the community engagement phase, how we've proceeded into prioritization is myself and Reed Dunbar and Catherine Rohan are manually reviewing all 1,300 of those comments,
Oh, wow.
sitting in a room. Because, a lot of folks, they have an idea of what feels unsafe, but it's not really a refined project idea yet. And so we're workshopping the comments we got to see, well, is there a project, here? Or perhaps it's, some people have provided suggestions for things we already have plans, things we already have funding for. So we're kind of filtering out some of the ideas that either, we know are a no-go from like a feasibility perspective, or, have a project planned already, a whole host of things that we're reviewing for. Cass, if you could flip the slide, that would be great. So far, we've gotten through about 760 of the 1,300 projects. We're continuing to work through those. Hopefully, we'll have them complete in July, so we'll have that more refined project list for scoring. Now, when we're actually moving into the scoring process, what we're talking about is a matrix of variables. So we're going to be looking at each of these projects for a variety of data points, some of them being safety data points, equity data points, travel demand data points. And thankfully, we have the help of our GIS staff who are helping build a Python model that will help kind of automatically pull this data and crunch the numbers for us and spit out a final priority score for every proposed project that we're reviewing. Yes, go
Would
ahead.
you prefer that we wait for questions or can I ask? you?
You can ask the question.
So two questions. One is with the maybe previous slide, it said 23,000 postcards. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So-
Sent them.
Sent them.
Oh, you sent
23,000
them.
that we sent out
To
to,
try to encourage participation.
yep, sending out survey links, information about Move Huge, trying to get people involved and participating in the process.
Okay, thank you. And then with this, love hearing they're gonna have a matrix for scoring for priorities. Will that matrix be like posted on the website? So if somebody wants to look at your ranking system, they could say yay or nay to the priority you give within a cell?
So we are probably not going to post the full matrix online. If we proceed through the slides, you're gonna hear a bit more about why, and I can kind of explain that as we go. So I'm ready to move on. Let's talk.
Hey,
first about-
I'm sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to point out that the Zoom participants cannot see the presentation.
Okay,
Sorry about
thank
that.
you.
Should I give you a second to share the screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask you one question while we're in this box? I was curious about, whether you guys had metrics for like, dispersion of like, of responses, like whether or not it is like equal over the whole city, and like, did you have if you
What's
had a
your
metric?
online? Are you able to see it now?
So,
Okay,
as far as this prioritization scoring process goes, what we're doing is we're trying to take all of these objective data points and kind of get a solid priority score that's help us rank all of the projects against each other. That being said, that ranked list is not the end all be all of what we're going to propose to city council. From there, we're going to go through a secondary process that's a little more, adjusting for things like expense, because, we can't, we might find ourselves in a position where the top few projects are like really large corridor projects. And it's like, are we going to invest all 5 million of the walking funds in a single corridor? No, we're going to try dispersing things out. So especially, this type of work is going to need to be approved by city council. So we really want to bring them a proposal where we can show them what we have planned. And every single counselor can look at that list and say, yes, my ward is getting its due investment. So there's going to be that geographic equity factored in, but it's not going to be through the scoring process necessarily. talking about speed or safety data to start, we're gonna be looking at a number of crash data variables. We're gonna be looking at whether locations are on our Vision Zero high crash network. Over the last 5 years of data, have there been any fatalities or severe injuries? We're gonna be looking at the number of bicycle and pedestrian crashes on record, which we know they're underreported, but we're gonna look at the data that we do have access to. Additionally, we're gonna be looking at the speed limits at the locations that are being proposed for projects. And we're also gonna be looking at the existing facilities that are out there, are there sidewalks? If there aren't sidewalks, people are probably walking in the roadway, and that might, have implications for what should or shouldn't be higher priority for us from a safety perspective. With equity, we're looking at a number of factors. We're using census data to look at race and Hispanic origin, income, age. We're also looking at certain environmental quality variables like air quality, since we know some particularly low income parts of town struggle with higher asthma rates related to air quality, related to vehicle traffic. It slipped my mind when I was building this slide, but we're also looking at proximity to affordable housing sites and social service providers for the project locations. We're also going to be looking at some travel demand variables. These include things like proximity to parks and schools. We're looking at job density and whether the proposed projects are nearby locations where lots of folks work, functional classification of the roadway, and proximity to transit stops. Now, we're running through this process, and at the back end of it, we may end up deciding to weight a particular category. We haven't firmly made a decision about that yet. In a previous iteration, of this scoring matrix that we had been using before Move Huge came into being, we had weighted equity variables. And I think that that's something that we may choose to do again, just because we know equity is something that hasn't been given its due diligence in transportation planning historically. So that might look like, multiplying the score by 1.5 or 2 for certain variables to help, rise up the role that plays in the final priority score. Can't remember. Yeah, so that concludes the slides for the Move Huge prioritization. Yeah, I see a hand up there in the back.
Yeah, so I saw the environmental quality with air, but can you talk to us a little bit about how you came up with those criteria? And I don't see a climate one in there, so.
Yes, so starting with the climate topic. In the previous iteration of our scoring matrix, we had a climate section. And we found that it was very difficult to quantify. If there's not a reliable way to calculate GHG reductions for different proposed projects, it's just not something we feel like we can do with confidence. And so that last iteration of the scoring system really relied on things that felt just subjective in nature. Like, how well does this project promote walking or biking? It's like that could mean a lot of different things to a lot of people. And for this particular, new and improved version of our scoring system, we really wanted to concentrate in on really objective variables that had really objective data inputs. Particularly because, we want that mathematical, I don't know the best way to say it, but that really mathematical backing, because, if we get to the other side of this and someone, comes to us and says, well, why wasn't my project selected for funding, and then there's subjective variables in the mathematical scoring system, that might not feel great for folks. So yeah, we're really concentrating on things that we can have reliable data inputs for. And I think there was another part to your question, but I'm not sure I can recall.
Well, I think you said that, which is that your criteria were, you're choosing it because you had data for it.
Mhm.
As opposed to where it was the, high, medium, low instinctual kind of thing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Logan.
Are there other questions?
So you've concluded your part of this, is that right?
The presentation, sure.
Okay,
We can have a
and so now
discussion
we're-
if you'd like.
Yeah, discussing, and if ATC sees some way that we want to ask to be involved, that could be part of the discussion. If we want to give feedback to Logan about what they're doing now, that could be part of the discussion, or anything else that might come up for folks.
One thing that comes up for me is, you had robust public outreach. My experience with, and I'm sure this is the experience of all city staff, is that no matter how robust your outreach is, when you actually get to be doing it, then you will hear a great deal about how you never came and asked us. So what steps can possibly be taken to continue to get feedback or continue to put that out? Because you've done this piece and then it gets kind of forgotten, and then a decision is made in November or city council and everyone goes, the sky is falling, you didn't choose, or I wasn't asked and there's this horrible thing that I want on the list,
Yeah.
So I don't know, I mean, this is a very general question, very general comment, but it is a challenge with any time you get public comment.
Sure, I think the next kind of interval where we really are gonna be going to, potentially going to neighborhood associations, trying to solicit feedback from, different committees, different stakeholder organizations, would probably be when we have an initial proposed projects list. Because we're not gonna, leave it till the last minute to take it to council. We're gonna be developing, after we conduct
Okay.
the scoring, developing that proposed project list. And then kind of, collecting feedback on it, from community members, from different committees, from stakeholder organizations. Before we take it to council, so we have that opportunity to refine it before council sees it.
So it's sort of like a draft.
Yeah, and so another thing to keep in mind is it seems like staff are leaning towards developing multiple options. So like coming to council with, option A, option B, option C, and they are, represent a mix of strategies for what we're gonna fund and why that might be a good thing to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Logan, so you'll end up with a list of actions of, intersections that you're really going to go after, or projects. So what does the city staff think about the data collected beyond that list? You got so much input. What would you say about the usefulness of that and how it might be used, the rest of the data?
It's gonna be extremely useful for a diversity of things. Number one that comes to mind for me is we're going to have to update our TSP at some point in the next few years. And so we are gonna be using a lot of that feedback in that process. One, I mean, it's great for like potentially refining our list of walking and biking projects. But also, for the future of the TSP, we have the aspiration of introducing an intersection section, which we have not had in previous iterations of TSP. So some of the proposed projects and feedback we got around dangerous intersections, locations where folks might want to see roundabouts or treatments like that, could be extremely useful when we go to update the TSP. Additionally, at some point, we're going to need to update the Vision Zero action plan relatively soon. There may be a relationship between the feedback we got through Move Huge and updating our Vision Zero action plan. Additionally, I'll say, just as we've been combing through, and I know we're going to talk about the quick build subject a bit later in today's meeting, but also as we've been combing through the project suggestions, we found a few that could potentially be good fits for quick build funding. And maybe in the future, we'll also be able to get additional funding for quick build projects. So that's another area where some project recommendations could potentially be helpful for us.
I think that's great. So, that you spent so much time on this input that now it can be useful for lots of different things. Yeah. Do you think that there might be, okay, so you're collecting all this information and it probably exists in all different forms, and I don't know if there would be any usefulness or way to report some general feedback that you got to the ATC. I think we want to know what's the public saying, and 1,300 comments, of course not. But, I just wonder if there's a way for us to also, hear, more about what you're hearing.
Yeah, so as Reed and Catherine and I have been working through all of the comments, we've been taking really diligent notes. Like both on each individual project proposal, but also we've been taking notes on like themes we're hearing across the board. So that could be a
Okay.
good thing for us to share with you once we come through them all, sharing our notes on the general themes that really, rose out of reviewing all of those comments.
I think that would be really great.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Mhm. Anything else for Logan? You're monitoring the people online? Okay,
Yes. Yeah, I would ask you, like, in terms of the second round of public engagement, that you're gonna do sort of after you kind of like refine a few projects. ha- Is the city council person from that board ever involved in that conversation with their constituents? I mean, you know what I mean, like, cause I'm just wondering how that works.
To a certain extent, yes, like we do have contact with certain city councilors, they hear from the residents, they say, hey. We've heard from folks who have this transportation concern and there have been some instances where we've been asked to score something. They've communicated that they'd like to see something done. And so we're going ahead and we're scoring it and we're including it in this whole process we're running through. Like I said, after we do the really mathematical scoring, there's gonna be that secondary, more subjective thing. And I think involved in those conversations are gonna be, what have we heard strong city council support for? Because we're gonna have to take this list to city council, and I think that makes sense for us to have that conversation as well.
Yeah, and I think also just in terms of them, if they think it's important to like endorsing it to their community, right? Because like, I mean, the River Road thing, like, I just feel like
Yeah.
getting that connection where it's like, if you guys are gonna go forward with the project, that it's really gonna happen and you aren't gonna get kicked back later, I'm sure.
Monitoring the chat, Alan Hancock asks a question. He says, People for Bikes, the League of American Bicyclists, NACTO, and the City of Eugene, TSP, etc., all stress the importance of completing a bicycle network. Why isn't that a primary criteria in the selection of projects?
Well, it's something that isn't gonna be involved in that like sort of secondary conversation. It's a little difficult to come up with like a numerical input for something like that in terms of like the mathematical scoring process that's helping us rank projects against each other. But that's not to say that that's not gonna be heavily involved in the conversation of what we put into the final proposal that we bring to city council.
Okay, thank you. Any further actions ATCCs right now about how we might want to be involved, or other than hearing the themes later?
When would that happen? Maybe?
So, like I said, we're 760 in. My aspiration is that we'll get through them all this month, but realistically, that might bleed into August.
Mhm.
I think our goal currently is to have a draft list of proposed projects sometime in early September.
Okay, great.
So maybe at the September meeting, we can just get an update before it goes to council in late October.
Yeah. We'll see if we can. get that in.
Because it's super interesting. I mean, I'm terribly interested to see what people, what themes emerged.
Right.
What,
It sounds like a really careful process of both the collection and then the, what do you call it? The analyzing of the data, and so it sounds great. Appreciate the work that you're doing, and
When was the last time you did a large scale public request for input? How long
The
ago?
move you,
Not
before the move you-
but just sort of active transportation. How many years ago was that?
I don't know, I can't say off the top of my head when the community engagement for the TSP happened. That was before I joined the city. So I probably can't give you a good answer on the timeline.
okay, thank you, Logan, on that. And let's go ahead then to the Vision Zero intersection study.
I'm up again, I guess.
Yeah, so if you recall, this is
Logan and Morgan.
this is something we considered at our retreat when we looked at the 7 projects. And this on our list of, when we ordered them in order of importance, this tied for number 2 in how important we weighted it at that time. So let's hear how that's going.
So I have slides for this one too, Cass, if you wanna flip on. Again. Yeah, so I know you all remember hearing about this. This is a $200,000 grant award that we were awarded a while ago. It's taken, oh, thank you. It's taken a bit of time to get through the contracting with ODOT, getting the intergovernmental agreement signed. I've been told that that should be finalized in August. So fingers crossed, and it seems like we're starting to get towards, needing to be organized, put out an RFP so we can bring a contractor on to help us with the project. But just to kind of give an overview of what it, could entail. We have 23 intersections identified in our Vision Zero action plan as being high crash locations. That could potentially be included in this study. I will say though, we have some of these locations that have received large improvements since the point in time that the data analysis took place. Or even, like the data analysis for our Vision Zero action plan, I believe goes back to 2007. So, like thinking about that type of crash term, crashes took place, but we've put in interventions. And so maybe it doesn't make sense for us to include those locations in the study. I'll also say, considering there's so many intersections in our Vision Zero action plan and the grant award was $200,000, it probably makes sense for us to concentrate on a relatively small subset of the intersections. When we're talking about, $200,000 over 23 intersections, I think it's something like somewhere around $8,000 per intersection, which wouldn't necessarily buy very much consultant support for data analysis and generating recommendations. So we haven't narrowed in on an exact number of intersections we want to include in the study. I would say maybe around 5 of our, most challenging ones. So we can really get the most bang for our buck in terms of the consultant support that can go into those intersections. So you might be asking yourself, well, what would the study actually do? One, it would obviously look at the crash data that we have access to, which is pretty standard. But the really special thing that I'm excited about is we'd like to do AI video data analysis of near misses at the intersections. So we would hire a consultant who would go out, install cameras, collect video data, and use AI algorithms to kind of scan that video data and give us real data on near misses that happen. Because near misses, we don't generally hear about. That's not a data source that we have good access to. A lot of these companies that can do this type of analysis also can give you data on like the speed of, the speed that people are
gonna be my
taking turns
question.
at. And they can give you, data on like which turns and which movements are, most heavily utilized. So it would be a really, really great thing for us to have for some of our most challenging Vision Zero intersections where we don't quite know exactly what's going wrong or what we'd like to do better there. Once the data analysis component of the project is complete, we would want the consultant to help us identify projects that can help alleviate the safety challenges there. That could include signal recommendations, that could include capital projects. We might consider roundabouts. There's lots of different things we could consider. Also, maybe even talking to them about more near-term interim solutions and long-term solutions. While we look for funding, maybe there's something smaller scale that we can implement more near-term. And then you see this final bullet here, maybe some degree of conceptual design. I think that's partially dependent on how many intersections we end up including in the study. Less intersections means we can spend more per intersection. So if there was a particular location where, for example, the final recommendation was we'd like to see a roundabout there in the long term, the consultant would then go and do some conceptual design work to help, give us graphics and help us think through like how that would actually fit within the intersection of the geometry and just kind of give us a leg up and a jump start on that process, which could be helpful when we go to apply for grant funding to actually construct it. I see a hand up back there.
Yeah, so Logan, and I guess this is for my fellow ATC friends. I would really like to see when we're identifying projects to go beyond. I know they were just examples that you gave, roundabouts and whatever. I don't know how roundabouts are good for bicyclists, but maybe I can be educated about that. But I would really like to see that linked to land use planning. So when we make something like market of choice, where we've got a giant parking lot in the front, as opposed to putting it in the back, it's not very, it's not very conducive to start with. And so all the great things we could do about crosswalks that Connie's just talked about on 11th and so forth, they're like stopgaps until we address how we're doing the land use in those particular spots. So, I mean, I'd kind of like to make that as a recommendation for us, but I can't do that tonight. So maybe we keep that on the bike rack.
So what, just to hear it, what would your recommendation be?
When they're in the third bullet here about identifying projects, that they include a broader way to think about those projects than perhaps the tools that you just had in transportation. So and explicitly that it talks about land use connection. Or built form might be another way to put it.
Do you have anything to say? We're not proposing it right now. Do you have anything off the top of your head that you would?
I think that, I mean, my initial reaction is the type of consultant we would hire to help us with this would be a transportation engineering firm probably, and I don't immediately know that they would be equipped to generate those recommendations. We could try talking with our land use staff to see what opportunities there are to coordinate. But off the top of my head, I'm not, immediately prepared to speak about, how well that could be.
Yeah,
integrated.
of course, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just
Sure.
let's get it out there and start talking.
It's kind of taking it to a higher level.
Well, and it's more systemic, right?
Mhm.
So, it's great to put all these crosswalks and so forth, but until we do things that are more systemic and make that link with land use, it's gonna be like a bandit.
I mean, just to, say, yeah. Anytime a cyclist or pedestrian has to walk through a parking lot full of cars, they are at risk. They are at risk. I mean, it's just a fact. So in, many countries, the storefront is on the street where pedestrians and cyclists can see it. And the parking is in a garage at the back or in the back lot, and you come in from the rear. Those people come in from the rear. So it's almost like a separate entrance for
Some communities have really decided to build that way,
to
as I
build that way,
understand,
and
yeah.
Eugene has not, and still
Right.
does not. We're still building strip malls and businesses and allowing the parking to be in the front of the business. I mean, it's just such a simple thing. It's so simple. It doesn't alter their plan. It just flips it. It's like building here, parking lot there, not the reverse. So they still get to do their project. They just reverse it.
Exactly. So at some point when it's appropriate, I would like to make a recommendation to that so that you make the linkage. Whether it's with the consultants that you hire, or it's a more formal link between transportation and land use in the city's department, or something to that effect.
Okay, thanks for that comment.
Yeah, it's kind of beyond what you're thinking and doing right now, but it is a really important thing to consider. So let's talk about how we can make that an agenda item for either subcommittees, or to talk more about it, or to bring it back to the group.
I mean, it's true with Move Huge as well, but it's really true with this Vision Zero stuff.
Mhm.
So I have a question about the AI video data. Does it see the type of vehicle?
You mean like car versus SUV versus truck?
Yeah, exactly.
I am not sure, to be honest with you, because there's a few vendors offering these types of services, and it's getting better all the time. So I would need to double check about that.
Okay. Just because out of, the thinking is that larger vehicles have poor visibility behind them and beside them. And, frankly, just by observation, those of us that are on our feet and bikes, they do tend to drive more aggressively too. Not always, but some of them, it's, oftentimes larger vehicles driving aggressively. So I'm just curious, I don't know what you do with the
Yeah, I
information.
wonder what you do.
You tell the insurance companies,
Yeah.
Yes.
You let the insurance companies know this is the data, better raise your rates on these big vehicles.
Okay, you're finished with
I
yours.
think so. I think that
Okay.
was my last slide. Is that right?
Okay.
Cass?
That first slide, the ratings, 1 to
Yep.
4, what are the? How does that equate?
Sorry, Cass, can you go back?
Yeah.
Too late.
Yep.
Are you talking about that little chart?
Yeah.
So this chart is just a screenshot from our Vision Zero action plan, where it identified, just a chart
It's
of
old.
fatalities versus severe injuries versus, for all the different modes.
Right, so but then the numbers of, is that a ranking of some sort?
No, that's the number of
Oh, that's
accidents.
the number of accidents.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, that would be fatal and severe injury crashes and moderate
Very
injury
serious.
crashes for pedestrians and cyclists.
But not that Connie was scared, the Podwards was scared out of her when she was on the crosswalk and the vehicles came barreling towards her. That's not on there. And it's old data because
It is,
07 to 15.
I mean,
that's-
some of these locations we know are still challenges. But yeah, like I said earlier, we're gonna be updating our Vision Zero action plan at some point relatively soon. I need to build out a schedule for that, but we recognize that we want to update the data that's in our action plan.
We had a couple comments from our retreat that might still be applicable, or a question. One question that came up was, is AI the best way to collect the data? There was some concern about data being harvested by corporations or police. I don't know if that's,
We would not give the data to EPD, nor do I think they would want it from us.
yeah, I don't know like how it's harvested and who, what is done
It's a
with that,
it's a
but
video camera. It's
Yeah.
a normal video camera. You would see like a traffic camera we might put up.
yeah,
And they would go through and they would scan it for the occurrence of near misses. So the AI algorithm has the ability to recognize pedestrians versus bicyclists versus cars. And it would be tracking all of those. And if a car comes within a pedestrian or a bicyclist within like a certain time frame, then it triggers that as being a near miss crash.
but it doesn't have any individual, collecting individual data or anything like that.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. And then the other thing
You're
is.
free, Mary, they won't notice what you're doing.
The other thing that came up was, people asked if whatever can be applied to an intersection based on the consultant's feedback and everything, if the city would consider like having that be like a toolkit for future intersections, so that, yes, we've got this one answer to this one intersection. Can we use that to apply to other?
I think it depends. I think every intersection is unique to a certain extent, especially like considering treatment types. Like if we were considering something like protected intersection or a roundabout, like the geometry of the intersection really matters. But every project is an opportunity for us, particularly projects we haven't done very many of. It's always an opportunity for us to learn and we can apply those lessons learned as we're designing these projects to future projects.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else for Logan?
I think later, but I don't. think
Yes,
right now.
thank you very much. We're really working you tonight, aren't we? Okay, how are we doing on time? We're doing well. The next one that came up as an agenda item that seemed applicable was there in 2019, I think it was, or 2018, 2019, the ATC came up with a map that showed difficult intersections. And I didn't know about that work before, but they spent a lot of time on it based on what we, Sue went and dug into the minutes from that time and it says this: the intersections were added to the list if they were Vision Zero intersections, had difficult signals, were confusing and or not friendly for people walking. There was no specific criteria. There were physical site visits for all the sites. They visited them physically and came up with a list and a map. And so Sue and I were just wondering, oh, they did all this work. And then in the notes, it also said that would be reviewed periodically by the ATC. And so we're wondering now, based on, okay, we've got huge input and we've got Vision Zero working on, does this still have a place, this work that they did, and should we still be updating that and looking at that? And I'd be interested in, so this is what the map looks like. And unfortunately, I could not find a key actually.
No, I couldn't find a key. You click on things and it has, and I tried clicking on some of the things and it has interesting notes
Oh, I didn't do
sometimes.
that.
Sometimes
Okay.
if you click
Yeah,
on
that's what I
something,
know.
some of them
Okay.
do, some of them don't, and some of them are confusing and.
So I
you know,
sent this out today very late, just in
Yeah,
case anybody
I
had
just
time.
quickly
No,
took
it's
a quick
interesting.
look, see,
Uh-huh.
it was interesting.
Yeah,
So, and I know BPAC does, you guys have been doing walk audits, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just signed up for something, there's some sort of seminar on the 26th. Like 11 AM that's about doing sidewalk audits,
mhm,
so I don't know if anybody'd be interested, I can send the link out to what it was. It
mhm.
was like a free Zoom.
So I guess sidewalks would be a part of a difficult intersection, but this, yeah. So anyway, I also asked very belatedly to, I think, Alan was a member of ATC then and, somebody else, and I just, Josh Kaczynski, I think. And so we were looking for, is there more background information? Do you think we could use this? You know, is this worth spending time on? Certainly, they put a lot of work into it, but now some of these have been addressed with infrastructure. Some of them are now included with Huge and Vision Zero. So we just wanted to bring this up and see if there's anything else you think we should do with this. And Logan, how do you think it could fit into your work, or do you feel like you've done a pretty thorough?
So I mean, considering the volume that's on there, I think it would be completely manageable for us to wrap it into our move huge scoring process. I mean,
Uh-huh.
and you know, there might be overlap, you know, maybe some of these project ideas have already been flagged for us.
Uh-huh.
But we'll take a look through, and if there anything that isn't, we'll review it the same we're reviewing all the other move huge comments.
Where does this information sit? Where is it?
Well, it's probably in the, I don't know, that's a good question. I'm not, Shane is the one who sent us the link to this. And I don't know if it was in with the meeting notes or where it lives.
Because it doesn't live in the city, apparently. It isn't in Move Eugene.
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
okay.
So maybe we can make that connection. 'Cause that was my thing, is like, well, I mean, here's a bunch of public comment that you didn't have to go get.
Right.
Since you're reviewing 1,000 something, you know, here's another, 50 or 60. What's the difference?
I don't know if we would need to kind of call it, or go through it first, or if we just let them.
Just let them have it. It's like all the other things that got stuck on those, when the people did the maps. I mean, did you read any of the comments that people put on the maps? When they were collecting
yes, a
data?
little
Yeah,
bit,
people
yeah.
have all it's a wide range.
Okay.
Like,
Well,
I hate this place, to, to very detailed instructions. So,
all right, is there anything else from ATC members other than, let's pass this on? Logan, can we consider it passed to you?
Sure, yeah, we'll
Okay.
do it.
All right,
Great.
And I really appreciate the history that Sue and Alan and Connie and all the folks that have been in the decades or whatever that is, that we keeping track of it. And that's something I've said early on, we're doing things, we ought to have a tracking sheet, so yay to you all for bringing this back up.
yeah, I
Thank
don't
you.
remember how it came up, yeah. Okay,
Okay.
let's,
Jerry has a comment.
oh, Jerry, good.
Yeah,
Uh,
I just wanted to quickly chime in and add that I second Alan's comment that it'd be really nice to know that this could be used, the work that the ATC did back in the 2018, 19. I printed out, Mary, and especially the red the skull and crossbones pins that were a little more difficult, and many of them resonated with me very much. Just kind of recalling all of my writing around the earth, and indeed, I think these were kind of well identified, and some work has been done. I know, like, for example, 15th and Alder was on the list that Logan just reviewed. That says that's something that the city did a great job with the Alder Street bike path. But really, realistically, I can see here it said Alder all the way to Washington, and that is true. That 15th Avenue, there's a main connector from Willamette to the Fern Ridge bike path, and that section that is still sketchy with all those roundabouts and two-way stop signs, and it's so it's a great example of something that I didn't see on Logan's list that I think the ATC clearly identified. And so I think there's a lot of value in this map, and it'd be great to see it considered and perhaps implemented in future planning.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. Should we move on? Thank you, Logan, for taking that into consideration. And we now have a break. We're running early, which is just fine. So let's see, a break is usually 5 minutes. Let's take, 5 to 7 minutes and come back at about 6:30, how about 6:37 or so.
Yes.
Oh,
So, we have been notified by Cultural Services that this bike wheel sculpture in front of Morning Glory is, needs to be moved. Morning Glory wants to expand its seating out a little bit. We wouldn't be moving the bike parking there, the blue bike parking, that's staying
Oh,
there.
I
The,
see.
the bike corral, but
That is by-
just the the wheel
The wheel
sculpture. And so we are brainstorming ideas right now about where might be a fun place to put it in the city. And so I wanted to come to you all to see if you had any ideas now or even later to just send me.
Okay, and how big is it again? Did you say?
Ooh, I don't have the dimensions. I don't have the dimensions on it.
Well, look at the bike, you can kind of
I was gonna
tell
say, there's a bike.
It's
behind-
where
there's a
it's
bike
like
eight to
behind
10
it.
feet. There's a bike.
2.5 bike lengths maybe.
yeah, about what,
Yeah,
12
2 by
12 feet by, you know,
It's probably 6 feet
What about the
tall.
bike
at
shop?
least 6
Do I
feet
need that
tall.
one?
It's a significant,
I'm
It's
not-
fun.
I'm not sure.
can we block an intersection
Mary?
with it somewhere?
Yeah.
Somebody
yes,
said
we
this.
do. Let's do that, Julie.
Do any of the bike shops on it? It's like, that would look awesome.
But shouldn't it be more public than that, or?
Yeah, it should be. I mean, of course, what I want is at the end of a neighborhood street to indicate that you can only get into it by bicycle. But
Oh, as a
no,
diversion.
it should probably go in a public
Maybe we need
area.
more of these around town.
Yes, maybe we could have some more of these.
City Hall.
You,
front of
you,
City
you've
Hall.
opened a horrible can of worms here now.
Did you hear it in front of City Hall?
I got it.
How about at
The new
the
City Hall,
farmer's
right?
market? I don't know
No.
if there it's
There
already,
was the parking there.
yeah.
Oh, the farmer's market was very nice, yes, or the park blocks that they're re-envisioning.
Yeah.
Mhm. Let's see, where else?
Someplace at Westmoreland or Amazon Park, maybe.
Maybe. But do you guys have a top spot yet that you're considering?
No, so right now we're just generating ideas.
Yeah.
I can
And-
tell you, a park, I mean, that I can tell you is a nuisance sculpture.
I see.
Because you had a son. My son is on the top of that.
Yeah, that's true, very true. I was thinking that it would be
Yeah.
easy to destroy as well as to climb all over, you know.
Yeah.
Well, if you put it someplace public, I mean,
It's
right
gotta
now,
be, I
it's-
mean, or it's because there's people on the sidewalk and there's businesses and there's background, it's harder for a child is hanging out there. But if you put it in Amazon Park, believe me, children will climb on it.
Good point.
Mhm.
So, but
Oh, we're checking.
yes,
So-
I'd like to climb on it now that you mention it.
So that's a key question is,
Liability.
you know,
Is
what
your
cultural
liability-
services may be expecting about, you know, interactivity, with the sculpture.
Mhm.
So how does it work here for the businesses? So this is a great example, Logan, of what I'm talking about, where the business or the building is at the street as opposed to.
Yeah.
You know, like over by Market of Choice, 29th and Willamette. The businesses here in Eugene, rent the sidewalk when they're doing their cafe kinds of things and, street dining or. I mean, can they say, oh, sorry, we don't want this here, and the city has to say, okay, we have to jump and figure out a new place, I guess.
Does the business pay money for that?
Yeah, well, I mean, how do they have, how did it come about that they're saying you gotta move that?
So in Eugene currently, businesses can apply for a streetery permit,
Okay.
which would allow them to, for restaurants to expand their seating out into the right of way. There are definitely restrictions around access and all of that, and making
Okay.
sure that, you know, people can still get through. But in this case, there is a public sculpture. And Cultural Services has agreed to move it.
And
To allow
so
the business to
their
expand.
permit has been, approved or whatever.
I don't know actually in what stage
Okay.
their permit is in.
Mhm.
It's fascinating. How did it get there in the first place? Do you know? I mean, where did this bicycle tire come from?
I mean, it's a local artist, I actually don't remember the install year, but
It's
he
kind of
created, it's actually the husband of the person who manages the Cultural Services Public Art Team. It just so happens before she did that.
Oh,
So, yeah, he did the whole thing, both the bike parking and the sculpture itself. So the sculpture will,
That's fascinating.
would it be an interference on a roundabout? I guess.
That's a very interesting thought,
Mhm.
because children do not usually run across the road to play in the roundabouts. You know, in France, every roundabout has art. Every roundabout almost has art. Out in the middle of nowhere, you go through a roundabout and there's a giant sculpture of a chicken, or,
It'd
you
be
know.
nice, like on
it's
Franklin
very
Boulevard,
fun.
one of those
It's so
roundabouts, because
fun.
it's sort of the entrance to the city,
Yeah.
you know, and it,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't. it'd have to be a
Well,
big.
roundabouts are definitely a
Round-
place that we want to be putting sculptures, so.
yeah,
It's a
roundabouts are a great idea, because that gets rid of the attractive nuisance
Right.
issue to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Except for really.
7 kids sitting on top of the roundabout. Yeah,
Okay, there's
Okay.
actually some activity happening in the chat here.
Ooh.
Let me check this. Okay. There's a question, what is it made out of? Could it be bolted down and use the bike rack at the farmer's market? I mean, people already currently use, it is made of metal. People already currently use it as a bike rack, as you can see.
You couldn't stop it,
in-
yeah.
There's a photo that we have displayed in the room. The, in terms of having it at the farmer's market, that is more challenging. That space is really, fairly maxed out. But, you know, possibly somewhere else in the park blocks, I'm not sure. But these are all great ideas, and if you have more of them, send them my way. It's, you know, obviously, we're just still generating ideas.
I don't think you could count that as bike parking, because I think you could probably only put 2
Yeah.
bikes on it, it would
Yeah.
just be.
We wouldn't want to, we
Yeah.
wouldn't want to count it as bike
Right, right,
parking. This does not meet our code at all.
No.
But, for practical purposes, people do tend to use it.
All right, anything else on the bike art? All right, let's go on to number 9, quick build tactical urbanism. What is it? So we requested that Logan talk
Yeah.
about this. He at first said, well, it's maybe not timely, but we thought it'd be good to get some background information as the city's getting more. Let's tell us about tactical
Sure,
urbanism.
and I
Such
do
a
not
great
have slides
name.
for this one, because as you mentioned, the quick build stuff is a little bit earlier on.
So it's slash quick build, so it's kind of the same thing.
So to kind of give you an idea of what quick build is, it's kind of been the new, more popular term for projects that were previously described as tactical urbanism.
Hmm.
It's something, it's language the city's using, it's language that a lot of folks nationally are using, the federal government is using.
What, quick
Um,
build?
Yeah. quick
Because it
build.
sounds too progressive to have tactical.
Yeah,
Well,
Sounds
there are
underground.
also- So
I
tactical
love it.
urbanism, you know, I think the reason that language is shifting away from that is it gave folks the idea that they should go out and do things in the right of way without seeking permissions, which can be dangerous and we don't want to encourage people to do.
Mhm.
So I'm sorry, will you define the term for
Yes,
us?
yes, I'm gonna define quick build. So what I'm talking about when I talk about a quick build project is a project that utilizes lower cost, more bolt down style materials to construct improvements that we otherwise might construct out of concrete. So envision like a roundabout constructed from flexible delineators, curb extensions constructed from flexible delineators, you know, bolt down curbing, like materials like that, that are faster to deploy and less expensive to deploy than building a concrete alternative.
Like the crossing at Alder
Yeah,
and
Planter's good
19th,
connection.
which you don't ride, but if you live in our neighborhood,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
all ride down Alder.
I have.
And it has a smashing
Does that include?
in the middle of 19th. It's just super effective.
So that's like bollards.
So bollards, yeah, bollards
These
are great
heavy
material
sort
to
of
use for quick build projects.
Plastic things that they.
And there's kind of there's two general advantages to doing quick build style projects. On one side of things, because they are lower cost in nature, we can deliver them more in an interim fashion. So if we know we wanted to go and construct a project somewhere, but we can't afford to do it right away, we need to go find grant funding to help us, actually build the project. It's more affordable for us to go in the near term and construct something out of bolt down materials like flexible delineators, bolt down curbing, planters, potentially that type of material. So that it allows us to deliver things sooner. And then the second advantage is that it allows us to test treatments before committing to a permanent concrete construction project. And in certain instances, that's going to give us more, in certain instances, perhaps more support from the neighborhood, like let's test this, let's pilot it, let's see how it performs, before we build a concrete project. And also, that can also be something that's received well in like federal applications and state applications for funding. We're gonna pilot this, we're gonna collect data before constructing a permanent project.
Like the whole of Franklin Boulevard.
Well, we wouldn't do, so
I
that's
know.
another great,
I'm
that's another great
teasing
point
you,
to bring
but-
up, to give people an idea of the types of locations we would be looking at for quick build projects. We would generally not be considering arterials.
Okay.
It's really more appropriate for local streets, for potentially some smaller collectors. Because, when you're at the arterial scale, it's just the magnitude of the issue is usually too much to address with build materials.
Mhm.
So we, in partnership with LCOG, secured some grant funding. My recollection is it's a little over $100,000, maybe like 120 to 140, somewhere in that range, to deliver some quick build projects over the next 3 years, I believe is the timeline. We haven't gotten very far into planning those, partially because Move Huge came up, and we ended up spending a lot of staff time on that. So we're a little bit behind in terms of where we wanted to be in planning them, but they are coming. And also, we're always looking to get more funding, and something that we're interested in is securing even more funds for quick build projects. Like, for anyone who may or may not be aware, we recently submitted a Safe Streets and Roads for All grant with the federal government, which is basically a Vision Zero grant, where we partnered with LTD to apply for what we're calling a first and last mile safety study, to examine bicycle and pedestrian conditions around transit stops. And one of the phases we scoped into that application was funding for quick build projects, demonstration projects, that could implement things that data analysis informs. Go ahead.
So, Logan, would that be one of the themes that's come out? Andrew's mentioned this several times, is this idea of a diverter. So I think about 10th and Adams, for example, or Broadway and Tyler it is. So, you can't go zooming through, you have to go around the curve. I think that's called traffic diverter, right? Could be as simple as a pretty planter. That just makes people slow down in the intersection. Would that be included in this whole idea of a quick build?
So diverters are not something we've done a lot of in recent history. I think for our traffic operations folks, there is a desire to keep a certain degree of street connectivity. And I think that has deterred us from pursuing a lot of diverters in, at least over the last few years.
But that's.
That
the
doesn't
whole
mean we
point.
couldn't, revisit that conversation. Doesn't mean we can't revisit that conversation and talk about whether there are any pilot projects we might want to try with the quick build funding.
Gosh, it's so interesting. It'd be so amazing to do it in a neighborhood, that's bound by a couple of arterials, and just put those diverters. Like there's one that you can only go through bikes only
Well,
downtown.
so
somewhere.
Broadway and
and
Tyler and
Tyler.
the 10th and
Yeah.
Adams, and they're great.
They're great.
Just really great,
Cars can still go in from one
That's right.
direction.
but it
And
just
park,
slows
but
the
it's-
cars down just a tad. And they usually, well, the two there have like little triangle and people planted and so forth, so, you know, they're doing kind of beautification, which is lovely. And so Andrews Britton, maybe it becomes an additional topic, but it seems like this would be just right for that kind of,
Yeah,
even if it's a makeshift, maybe the sculptures going in those kind of intersections.
Well, I think there's been a lot, I've heard interest from various ATC members about, well, can't we just put up a bunch of bollards and get on with it, you know? So I think this is a really interesting topic for us, and I didn't realize that there was like funding directly for that, you know, so we just wanted to learn more about that and know that that's something that the city is thinking about and working with, give us some background information as we go forward.
so it's actual projects rather than, because I think some of us would really like to see every bike path in Eugene that's on the street have bollards.
Yes.
And it'd be nice if they were the color that you've used for delineating that it's a crossover for bikes, green, you know, not white where they just fade into people's lack of consciousness. But, you know, something neon green or something along, just to mark them, and if they'll get hit by cars, good. You know, that'll scrape the paint up a bit, but,
Would a quick build maybe include paint?
yeah, could it include green paint, which is another thing that makes a huge difference.
If the paint is included in the scope of delivering the quick build project, the funding could pay for the striping.
And
Um,
Charles?
Potentially, you know, but I will say, as far as protected bike lanes go, I'm not feeling sure that this funding is a great fit for that. For a lot of reasons, but one being, you know, if we're talking about protecting a large number of bike lanes, I don't feel like the amount of funding we have in the quick build
It's a lot of
funds
bikes,
is
a lot
enough
of
to cover
miles.
it. And also, I'll say, as we talk about future protected bike lanes, I feel like staff are having a lot of conversations about wanting to deploy more durable materials than the standard bollards.
To really get the job done.
Yeah, like things that are more like tough curb, like bolt down curbing materials, bolt down concrete like bars. You know, potentially with some vertical elements, but I think we want to beef up what that looks like versus, you know, just having the bollards there. Because they do get hit and need to be replaced a lot. And also, I mean, if they're getting hit a lot, that's also a safety issue for the cyclists that are in the facility.
And when they're right, I mean, yeah, anyway, it does just show how much. Yeah, how much imposition there is on parking cars, you know, in bike lanes. UPS vans.
Yeah.
It's natural.
The Whitaker intersection, right? There's like 4 intersections that were painted in the Whitaker, like, right?
There are some murals there, yeah.
So was that part of that same idea?
No, it didn't come out of the same amount, the same pot of funding. One of them, the intersection of Clark and Adams, has a quick build roundabout in it, and then the murals within the quick build roundabout. So there was a little bit of an opportunity to coordinate there, but the roundabout did go in before the mural. That came out of a different funding pot.
Wasn't that like a neighborhood
Yeah,
grant
the
or
Whitaker
something?
Community
Yeah.
Council really drove that, I think,
Uh-huh.
which Cass
Yeah.
knows a lot about, but I don't.
Yeah. Basically, the Whitaker Community Council, which is the only neighborhood association that is an actual nonprofit,
Oh.
secured a grant from the CPC foundation to sorry, but it was something related to health. I want to say CDC.
It was
but
like
that's not right.
masking up or something like that.
And so they sponsored these roundabouts and different murals, but the idea was to slow down traffic in those areas.
Okay, anything else for Logan? Logan, thanks again.
Yeah, you've really been
Trifecta
you
or
know,
something.
on the
Yeah, no
spot
problem.
tonight.
Happy to come.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay, let's move on to project updates and information share. Maybe we can start with Keith. What's happening?
Well, first of all, I just want to give our friends in Eugene a thanks. We've got we got a grant for like 400 bike racks that we're going to be putting throughout Springfield. They're individual racks, so it's not 400 locations, but it's like, you know, fair number. But, and I don't understand how all this works, but apparently the grant, the city of Springfield wasn't qualified to receive those funds for that. So what's happening is Eugene is actually receiving the funds, and then basically just, moving it over to Springfield. So Springfield will manage the project, but the money's coming through Eugene. So it's
Wacky.
kind of a crazy deal. But anyway, it's all happening. So thank you, Eugene.
Good.
So yeah, that'll be,
That's a lot of projects.
we're gonna be in the next couple of months, kind of trying to nail down where all those locations are gonna go. But that'll be pretty cool, because there's there's need in a lot of locations for better bicycle, racks, like even, even on the west, the North Bank path there along West D, and that's a very popular area. I live right in that area. But, especially this time of year, people go down to the rapids, down the river, and there's no bike racks anywhere. So that's gonna be good. So that's exciting. We got a presentation from Lamoille about, and I think I mentioned this last meeting, but about the planning that they're doing for their next, going forward. There's a big project going on there, but there's a lot of pretty cool stuff that they're looking at in terms of improving hiking and biking. It's a pretty high priority thing, and I think there's even talk now that they may be coming back and looking for another bond to support some of that. So that's good. And the last thing is this I'm pretty excited about is sounds like at least in the city of Springfield we're getting some funding there that they're gonna start to try to work on consolidating our online information on bicycle safety and past, because right now so, and I don't know I haven't looked at Eugene's, but it's really if you go online, especially on your phone, to try to learn anything about bike paths or bike anything, it's just there's information there, but it's not really condensed down to where it should be. So I think we're going to try to come up with a landing page, in Springfield that really works for that, and then maybe have like QR codes on the bike path so people can go, go to that, get on their phone, and that information is consumable. So that's pretty cool. So
That's great. Yeah, I always enjoy hearing what's happening in Springfield because our link is so strong, especially with active transportation. And so I just feel like whatever we do is good for Springfield, or Springfield does is good for us. And it's really
Yeah.
really
I just
important.
the more that we, especially as far as information goes, I think the more we're consistent about those things between our municipalities, things like safety and stuff like that, the better, because that message then is like reinforced. So we're all for that.
I think it's a great place to ride a bike. We love riding over to Springfield. Anything from you, Andrea, regarding, okay. And so we're opening the floor for other updates and kudos to and thanks to Charlotte for hosting the dessert potluck last month. It was very nice setting in her yard and we had a lovely time. So thank you.
Dessert potluck, it's a good way to go.
Yeah, that's a good way to
We
go.
ate a lot of dessert.
Right.
Jerry's got his name.
Jerry, yes.
Hi, let's see here. I have a note here for this. Yeah, I wanted to let everybody know about a cross neighborhood forum on sidewalks that's happening on Thursday, August 24th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. Mary kindly sent out the information link. The Southeast Neighbors Transportation Committee has decided to offer a cross neighborhood forum for neighbors to convene and openly talk about needs and what has worked or what other ideas are out there to support active transportation on a safe and contiguous sidewalk network. The emphasis of the meeting is really just neighbor to neighbor conversation and brainstorming about issues, what neighbors have done already regarding sidewalks and what solutions might still be out there. They are purposely not focusing on city staff or counselors, so it doesn't become so that the focus can remain on the neighbors, and they would love representation from multiple neighborhoods. So if you're interested in talking about sidewalks and sharing ideas, please feel free to join again August 24th, 7 p.m. via Zoom that Mary talked about today.
Thank you, Jerry. It just feels like sidewalks are coming up more and more, right? So this is really,
Absolutely.
does dovetail with the work we've been
They're
doing.
already heaving.
Yeah. Hey, Misty.
Hello,
Hi.
I just sent out an email about River Road Community Organizations River Celebration on September 9th. And we wanted to invite ATC to have a table at this celebration. And it'll be held at Mary Lane Park and Razor Park. And then the bike lane in between those two parks. So there'll be, so we're looking at showcasing talent and assets along the West Bank path. And we're inviting community to walk and enjoy each other. And we're inviting folks to have booths. I'm gonna operate a cider press, so folks can bring their apples from their trees and have a press. So I unfortunately won't be able to table, but I'm hoping that some of you might be interested in representing ATC and volunteering at this event. So I sent an email with basically what I just said, and if this needs to go on the agenda for next month, so be it, or I'm not quite sure how y'all wanna, how we handle volunteer opportunities for tabling specifically, for ATC, representing ATC at a community event, so.
Right, yeah, we haven't had a tabling opportunity in a long time. I think with COVID and everything, since I've been on ATC, we haven't done that. So we'd have to think about what is the nature of tabling for ATC?
Yeah.
What would we
What do
want
we
to?
have?
Yeah, what do we have? What would we want to collect or give out or? So
Yeah,
that's something for us to think about. And we don't have an August meeting, so it would have to happen
over email.
behind the scenes more. Yeah, so we'll
Okay.
look at the email and see.
Okay,
Any
Okay.
other-
If I could follow up on that, thanks Misty for sending that out because it jogged my memory. The Southeast Neighbors annual picnic is on the same date, September 9th. And it might be, if this happens to be a possibility that we had ATC members who were interested in attending and tabling on, who knows, Move Eugene, current ongoing active transportation projects, anything else that we can be of help in spreading the word about, that would be yet another event. So I think both of these are great opportunities. I think attendance at the Send picnic is, it's hundreds, if not over 1,000, and River Road would probably be the same, I would guess. So it's a great opportunity.
Okay, well, maybe some of us can have a conversation, like I said, behind the scenes via email. And see if there's energy for that and what that might look like. Yeah, thank you both. Any other announcements or information shares? So there's no meeting next month. I would like to convene with our leadership group, Charlotte and Misty, if you're still on board, and Sue and I, and talk about going forward with our subcommittee idea, what's our next stab at that, how we want to go forward with that. So if we could maybe find time to meet in the next couple weeks when Sue's back in town, that would be great. Yeah,
So, are we planning to have a July subcommittee meeting?
we do not have one scheduled.
Okay,
No.
because one thought was to have a July subcommittee meeting and talk about these tabling opportunities.
That's a thought. Yeah,
and I'm taking off for Montana for a couple of weeks. I'll be back the first week of August.
oh,
So-
you'll be back the first week of August. Okay, so we'll wait for the leadership committee until then. Okay. Yeah, let's chat more on via email about that.
Okay,
and see what interest there is. In availability. Okay, thank you. Anything else? I think we are adjourned early then tonight. Yay.
It's someone.
Hey, Michelle. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Hi, Jerry and Misty.
Yes, thank you, Logan. It was very helpful.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, some nice, clear
Thanks for having
information.
me.
So
Yeah.
Mary, I'd be willing to table probably with a raise places like these. Yeah. I have a folding table. It's possible.